So this is another technique called the unit method. Okay, unit method is really very I would say it's very simple, but it's very powerful because we use it everywhere. Okay, and especially in the construction field. So the unit method involves using a per unit factor that can be estimated effectively. Well, it sounds very abstract, but let's see the examples, okay? For example, if you know that operating a car, and usually it's given, okay? If operating a car, a private car, USM vehicles to travel for business, okay, for school stuff, and the per mile cost is 58 cents per mile for private vehicles. If you drive your own car to Jackson for a project meeting, right? That's a business trip, and so the cost for you to get reimbursed is the unit cost is 58 cents per mile. And if you use the USM registered car, that unit price is 20 cents per mile. Okay, how do you use that? When you get reimbursement, you're gonna tell your financial people that how many miles you have driven for that trip. Okay, and then this number will be multiplied with that mileage, and then that's the number you can get reimbursed. Easy, right? Easy to understand, but actually it's used everywhere, not just at USM. It's in every universities. Okay, so the unit method means that how much for each unit, or how much for each, in this case per mile, and you also know that in total how many miles are there, and then you multiply these two variables, you can get the total cost. Another example is if you're building a highway. Well, you don't know because building a highway depends on how long the section is, right? So you first need to know how long it's gonna be. Is that a highway connecting Hattiesburg and Jackson, right? So you can have a mileage estimate, and then also you will have this cost per mile based on your experience or based on your company's records. So this 6.2 million per mile, that's the unit factor or unit cost. And then you're gonna time that with how many miles you're going to build, maybe 100 miles. And then your total cost is gonna be $620 million. That's a lot. But yes, this is how easy it is. You just need to know the unit cost and then the number of units, and then you multiply them together. That's your total cost. Okay, and then one more example is if you're gonna constructing a house, usually you will know what's the cost per square foot, and that cost is including everything. That's what we can see as an average cost, right? So because you are experienced construction manager, so for type of that, for a house in this area, the total cost is that much, and then you divide it by the square foot. That's the cost per square foot. And then when you estimate another house, if you are going to estimate that another house, you just use this cost per square foot to time with, what is the footage of the other house? Maybe it's 2,000 square feet. So the total cost is gonna be 225 times 2,000. That's your total cost of that new house. Okay, And then the last example is to pouring concrete. And so usually the concrete pavement, you are going to know the area, like what's the cubic yard it is, how big it is, and then you multiply that with this unit cost, okay? Say maybe I want to have 100 cubic yard. And then the total cost is gonna be 9,300 for that big area, okay? So as you can see, this is very easy to understand, but it's used everywhere. And so if you want to have an equation for this, that's gonna be your equation to use. So the total cost is the unit the cost per unit times the number of units, right? And as I said, it's very useful, especially in the construction project. For example, if you want to, build something to improve the pedestrian or bicyclists traffic, you might want to consider build new sidewalks. But different types of sidewalks, they have different, costs, right? So the way you estimate that is you go to check some, engineer's manual like this one. So this is a book where it lists all the, typical costs of different types of facilities. Like we can set up a sign, we can have, speed bump, we can have overpass, underpass, we can have crosswalk, we can have sidewalk. So those are very typical facilities for improving, walking. And for each type facility, you can have, different range of costs. Usually you have median cost, average cost, minimum cost, maximum cost. It's all based on like what's the historical data you have, right? And these costs are all unit costs because you see that cost unit is each. So each sign cost minimum is 210. I mean the sign is something like stop or something like pedestrian walking here, so yield, something like that. So one sign, the cost is, the minimum cost could be 210, and it could be very expensive. The maximum cost could be 560, depending on the size of the sign, the material of the sign, right, or the where the location of the sign. But this kind of manual will give you a good estimate of unit costs, and that's very useful resource. So that if I say, hey, I want to build sidewalks and I want to build brick sidewalks, for example, and the unit is gonna be linear foot. So you have to let me know how long is the sidewalk, right? So maybe the sidewalk length is just 100 feet, right? So the total cost is gonna be 100 feet. That will multiply the unit the cost per linear foot, and I will choose to use the average. So it's gonna be 100 feet times 60 per foot. So my project, the total cost is gonna be 6,000, right? So that's how we use the unit method.